Good evening. Welcome back to Vikings First and SKOL. I'm Sally. This is Skoldiers and Spice, and it is another Victory Tuesday. 12-2. Can you believe it? I wasn't sure if we would see 12-2 this decade, but here we are, and it feels so great. The Vikings beat their rival, the Chicago Bears, and even though we've talked a lot about these past couple weeks about how these primetime games against the Bears are usually pretty ugly, this one was, I don't want to say beautiful. That would be a stretch, but by comparison, it was great. So that's awesome. We've got the Vikings rolling into the playoffs here in control of their own destiny. And my friend Dustin Baker is here tonight to fill me in on what I missed last night at the winter whiteout game. And we're going to get into all these topics and see where he thinks this Vikings team can go in these playoffs. Let's get into it. Dustin, hello.
Yo, what up?
Hi. Good to see you.
Likewise, let's talk some home field advantage possibilities about these Vikings, among other topics.
I know. Oh my God. I just got chills when you said that.
It's realistic now.
It's crazy. I know. We were outside last night talking about it could possibly be the first Vikings home NFC Championship game. I mean, I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I guess I had never thought about how that had never been at home.
Ever?
In our not in our lifetime, at least.
Oh, yeah. Certainly not in our lifetimes.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, but I see Cora's here, so I wanted to say hi to her because I know you guys actually had a dinner.
Yeah, with her and her whole gang. It was fantastic.
Yeah. We love the Cheesecake Factory, so jealous.
Shout out.
But anyways, hey chat, yeah, let's get into it. So last night, well, wait, do we want to start with the breaking news? Let's start with the breaking news, just because I don't want to get back into it with him. We did not speak last week, you and I, so we did not chat about Kirk Cousins. I was saying that it didn't really make a lot of sense since, you have been my therapist all of these years, that I didn't lay that out on you. But the news came out today that he has been benched. You broke it to me. Give us the scoop. What's going on?
Yeah, well, the writing was on the wall. Well, it has been on the wall for about a month, and then it got hot and heavy this weekend. The Falcons incidentally won. They beat the lowly Raiders in a kind of like our Jacksonville game that we had. Like, they found the way to win. And today, their head coach, Raheem Morris, was asked, is Kirk Cousins your starter? And he said, like, hey, we just got back. We haven't even got into that yet. And when your coach says that, but a guy who has a contract worth $100 million guaranteed won't commit to you, the writing's on the wall that something's going to happen. And then about 6 hours later, or 10 minutes ago, from the time we recorded this, Cousins is benched. Michael Penix will take over. And I think now that we have about a 3-month sample size of the season between Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins, we underestimated that tearing your Achilles as an old football man, that matters. I think a lot of us I didn't want him back with the Vikings because it was time to turn the page, but I was also paranoid that, can he still play when he has that type of injury? I didn't have that fear about Rodgers necessarily, but when these guys get into their upper 30s and they tear their Achilles, it's not guaranteed to end swimmingly. So they're still going to, in dead cap money, be on the hook for Cousins for $60 million, no matter what happens, unless they find some poor bloke team to trade, and then it'd only be $40 million dead cap. But yeah, I think this is the Penix era now, and unbelievably, the Cousins era in Atlanta only lasted 15 weeks.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, I am a little upset though, because I'm sure you remember on your show, and even believe several times, I think I said that my hot take for the season was that Kirk was going to be benched before the Minnesota game. And It happened, took an extra week. So I'm a little upset about that one, but it still is hard to believe that it happened. The whole situation with him and how they signed him to all that money after injury, then drafting, and now how it's working out. It's pretty crazy. But I saw somebody in the chat ask, benching him won't affect the compensatory pick, will it?
No,
and it won't, right?
No, that's
Yeah.
that's been the moment he inked the contract there, and then we didn't have like a lateral replacement to the tune of 45, 50 million. That was safe. So no matter what, we will get that compensatory for Cousins. It's a complicated formula, but that one's pretty cut and dried.
Okay, beautiful. Well, it just crazy to see how that all worked out. I said I wasn't going to spend much more of this season talking about him, and now we don't have to because there's no. Well, I guess he could play in the playoffs if they manage to get into there, but I think that's going to be unlikely. So
Mhm.
hopefully it's over with now. It's all done.
Well, it
But
depends if Penix is a baller. They got 3 games left, and they're 1 game back at Tampa, and all they have to do is tie Tampa because they already have the tiebreaker. So it kind of comes down to whether Penix is game ready right away. Yeah,
mhm.
we'll see. Well, and they have a really easy schedule. Remember that the Bucks and the
Yeah.
Falcons eternally start the season, and even now have an easy schedule. So, yeah, let's get into some of the Viking stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about the Vikings for sure. So last night, the winter whiteout. Everybody loves the whiteout. I think we've been doing it for 3 years now.
Hmm.
And I didn't end up going into the game, as I was telling you. I was at the tailgate, of course, but the tickets were it was $200 before fees to even walk in the door and sit in the very last row. And I thought, I got to think big picture here. I got a lot of games to go to throughout January and February. So this is one this is one I'm just going to take the night off from. So we were watching the game in the parking lot, but I missed out on the winter whiteout atmosphere. So tell me, give me some takeaways. What was it like?
So it was as advertised, awesome. Whenever they do that event, it's a hit. I think there's always unnecessary belly aching before the game about people like, I don't know, people they didn't get the memo about wearing white. I think it's because they wear like purple coats and regular coats into the game because when you look out at the masses, it's white. Like we don't have any big grievance about once the game starts. And I love the fact that they switched it up to a white helmet. Like for almost a decade on the internet, you see those fun articles about, hey, these concept helmets, the Vikings put the Norseman on the logo. That's how it look. And I've never wanted the Vikings to change everything, but I wanted them to do something cool like the other teams
Mm-hmm.
do or like the NBA does every night. So I hope they
NBA.
make the NBA always has some iteration of a different jersey. That's what I mean. And so the Vikings were
Yeah.
always the same. And I hope they make this a stalwart of how they do things, do it once per year. And then in terms of the fan reaction or the game in general, it started off popping, and then I think everybody got kind of bored in the middle of the game because it
Yeah.
wasn't a big commanding knockout. And then things got fun towards the end, kind of like the Falcons game late in the fourth quarter. But overall, my favorite takeaway about going into this game is Sally, I did not have the dreaded feeling about God. I hope they don't have a letdown game because they've already won the division. And a lot of these things that I felt for 3 decades of fandom, I'm starting to shed. Like I didn't worry about losing this game. Going into Seattle this week, I'm not paranoid because we never win at Seattle. I don't have that anymore. So I really have to give credit to the front office and the head coach that have helped destroy these or basically heal some of the scar tissue that we have.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you on those points. I was talking with people in the parking lot and stuff before the game, and a lot of people had mentioned, oh, this feels like a trap game. This feels like one of those games that they're just going to lose. And I've heard myself say that, probably 100 times in my life, but I just didn't
Mhm.
feel it. I didn't feel it with this game or with this team in general. I can't put my finger on what it is. I know that it's that every game I feel like they are pretty consistent. I mean, there's nights where,
Mhm.
Sam is a little bit off or they might have given up more defensive yards than you would have liked to see, but overall, I feel like they're very steady in the way that they perform. And I think all of the teams of the years past that we look back on, they didn't have that consistency across the board. That's all I can point out to what it is. I don't but those fears have escaped me as well, and I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, there's a few things going on. We have balance on offense and defense during the Zimmer era. Most of it, there was always one thing you could hang your hat on, and I think right now we have some equity. Defense is certainly a little bit better than the offense, but then all of a sudden the offense will pop up and throw 5 touchdowns or whatever it is. So you have the balance, and then I don't think we have that dread or paranoia with Kevin O'Connell because he hasn't given us a reason to have it, at least not yet. So we have
Mhm.
this fresh air coaching staff, kind of youthful in the way you think about them with Kwesi Adafo-Mensah. And and they haven't given us a reason. They haven't given us a heartbreaking moment. And so I think that combines with the balance. And then Sam Darnold, like I was writing today something, and there hasn't been a single Sam Darnold bad moment or game. Like even his bad games, they find ways to win. So I think
Mm-hmm.
we're riding the honeymoon right now with him, and I think he's just good, and this is how it is. So long as he gets connected with the right head coach and set of playmakers. So you have the balanced offense, defense. You have Kevin O'Connell, who we have to give a lot of credit to, and then Sam Darnold. Like you remember when Cousins would have his 1 or 1.5 get bad games per year, the entire game was screwed. Like it was like, oh my god, one thing after another. But against Jacksonville, or even last night, Darnold wasn't overly crisp. When he's off, the team doesn't rot in hell like it felt like it has in the past, decade when things go bad.
Yes, and it's a complete domino effect in the past where just like everything then can go wrong, does go wrong. But okay, before we get too far off the whiteout, because I want to ask this, they had the this pregame tribute to Randy Moss, kind of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chris Carter was there and
Yeah,
Jake Reed. What was that like?
yeah. So they we had the coin toss, and they had honorary captains come out, and it turns out afterward this was Kevin O'Connell's idea. Kevin O'Connell was a teammate of Randy Moss, and then of course he's the head coach of the Vikings, which is synonymous with Randy Moss. So Chris Carter, and I'm sure they showed it on television, and Chris Reed came out holding the 84 jersey. Moss, we think, is battling bile duct cancer. The way that it was announced to us was that he survived it. And I'm like, you don't survive bile duct cancer after 6 days. So I think he was trying to manifest a survivor story, which is more than fine. But I think he's got a big fight on his hands. That's my interpretation, perception of bile duct cancer. So he had his homies, Chris Carter and Jake Reed, walk out with the jersey, and that was the brainchild of Kevin O'Connell to pay homage and cheer Moss along this journey that'll hopefully end up with a happy ending.
I did not know that was Kevin's idea. That's so touching.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And you say they probably showed it on TV, but as Dave mentioned before we started the show, some of us didn't know that it was a 7:00 kickoff. They thought it was a 7:15.
Yeah, those casual fans like yourself.
The casual like myself thought it was a 7:15, and so when everyone was like going into the stadium kind of early, I was just like, all right, guys, I just thought, well, maybe they think it's going to be crazy. It's Monday night, and I had, like I said, I didn't go in, and my TV from the previous sessions had broken, which wasn't a big deal. It was old TV, so I had to run to Target before the game, get a TV. So I didn't realize you have to like program a TV. I thought I'd just pull it out the box and we'll turn it on. I mean, it's an antenna hookup. It's not like I needed the channels to load or something. So yes, some of us thought it was a 7:15 kickoff, so they didn't pull their TV out of the box until like 7:07. So that's why I missed that. But okay, all right. Last winter whiteout thing. I also heard that a Vanilla Ice concert broke out at the game. How was that?
Well, I would say that Vanilla personally did a great job, but the acoustics were messed up. Like there were four times where his mic screeched like, and like the whole stadium went ooh. And I think that Vanilla Ice is far enough in the past that he probably doesn't care when stuff like that happens. Like he doesn't have this big career to hold on to. And he got paid whatever he got paid. But yeah, I would say the concert was memorable because of the microphones. I mean, these were loud, pronounced, and that doesn't usually happen there. It's not like the stadium hasn't hosted music before. Something would have missed. Right. But yeah, Vanilla. He did a couple of his songs, and of course, Ice Ice Baby for the winter whiteout theme. So overall, I guess it was decent.
Okay, cool. Good. I had not heard that yet. And that is one thing about US Bank. The acoustic situation is always hit or miss. I think I've told the story of how when we were there for Jared Allen's Ring of Honor celebration with him coming in on the horse and how I was so excited to see that moment. It was like, I was so looking forward to it. And then I couldn't hear a damn word because the acoustics were so messed up where I was sitting in the upper level. So it was like very disappointing. So yeah, I don't know how they still don't have that together, but let's say hi to the chat before we get into the details of the game here. I know JB is here. Hey King, good to see you. Jay is here, and he brought up, he said, if anyone is in here that did that to Sal's car, and I don't think any of my haters are in this chat tonight, so I don't think any car vandalists are here, but thank you for looking out for me. Chris Thompson is here. Who else did I see? Oh, Mary December. I absolutely love that username, and they have Sam Darnold as their picture, so that's beautiful. And Norsefius is here. Q-Man is here. Mr. Soda. Hey, you guys, thank you all for joining us. If you could like and subscribe, we would really appreciate it. Last thing I'll say about my car. I woke up this morning and my back windshield was broken out. And last night I heard something because I didn't go to sleep. I heard something outside and I looked out my back window and there was an SUV in the alleyway, but there was no people or anything. And I looked at my car and it didn't look like it was vandalized or whatever. So I was like, oh, okay. And then this morning I realized all the windows broken out. But I didn't think anything was stolen. So I'm like, okay, well, this is an inconvenience, but it's not that bad. And then I realized that my generator is gone when I just went and checked. And it's not even mine. I borrowed it from someone. So now I have to go spend like $1,000 on a generator that's not mine. And I couldn't update the Twitter family about that because that person actually follows me on Twitter and they text me immediately, is my generator stolen? And I said no, because I thought it wasn't. But then I thought about it and I'm like, yeah, it was. But anyway, that was my evening. But it doesn't matter because we're 12-2. So we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. But all right, back to the Vikings. Okay, let's see. So one thing that I thought was interesting as it was going on, it was 13-0, which was great. But I felt like they were just so pass happy early. I think in the first 40 plays, it was 30 of them were pass attempts. Why do you feel like they were so unbalanced in the beginning of the game with that?
Who? Which team?
Oh, the Vikings. Sorry.
Yeah, did they really throw 30 times in the first 40 plays?
That's what I was reading, and then only 10 rush attempts, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
It balanced out towards the end, but I did feel like every time they were passing.
Yeah, that would be a weird strategy too, because the one knock on the Bears defense is the rushing aspect, and you saw that in the second half once Aaron Jones got cooking and damn near at 100 yards. I think when that occurs, the only explanation that I have, because it's certainly not a go attack their weakness thing that the Bears do well, if anything, is their defensive secondary. So it'd be really odd to choose that as the thing to pick apart. But sometimes I just get the feeling that at the end of the day, we have a former quarterback as our head coach. And if he was allowed to, I'm guessing he'd throw it every single play. And I think when you get in those little spurts where it's throwing and more throwing, to me, I just smirk and say, oh, no, this is the trade-off when you have a former quarterback, almost like on those 3rd and 1 situations, almost eternally. You kind of know the Vikings are going to throw the ball, and that's what you get when you have a former quarterback like this. I've just gotten used to it. Ultimately, it didn't really matter that they didn't have, the run split that we would like. It did get cooking in the second half. The Vikings won this game convincingly for one reason, and it was 3rd down on both sides of the ball. On defense, the Bears were 1 for 12 on 3rd down and didn't get one until the 4th quarter. And then Darnold and friends, they were 7 for 14 on the other side of the ball, which is pretty decent. And when you have that type of discrepancy in a division game, like this was the Vikings Bears version of what a blowout would look like, because there's always going to be some shit, like a blocked punt, a Justin Jefferson drop touchdown that he'll never have happen again. And so that's what I'm like, all right, if there's going to be any sort of demonstrative win by the Vikings against the Bears, this is probably going to be what it looks like. So kudos to them on 3rd down. And I'm glad that Aaron Jones and Cam Akers scored. We've been on kind of a strange drought rushing touchdowns. They got in there. And I will say this in case I forget in the next, 20 minutes or whatever. If the Vikings were going to get hot and go do something special, they are getting hot at exactly the right time.
Yes, I agree with that too. You gave me chills again. Oh my God, this is so crazy. This is so crazy. But yes, the offense, I agree. I saw some people nitpicking that it wasn't a convincing win and that they were sloppy and all of that. And how many weeks or years now have we bitched about Bears Vikings games, how ugly they are, how close they are, they could go either way. They're agonizing to watch. Why do they put these on national television? Again, I don't think that was probably a great viewing for national viewers, but this one was one that was never really in doubt. I heard Cam Bynum say on the radio today on KFan, he said that they went into the mindset of this game of, the last time they played the Bears, they looked up all of a sudden and it was overtime. They didn't see that coming. Whereas this time they said, absolutely not. We are playing like this is a close game throughout, even if they are having no success. And I really saw the difference from them compared to the last time that they played, for sure. So I think that this was not a characteristic Bears game whatsoever.
No, think about where we'd have to be in this season or any Vikings season to have a 30-12 win not satisfy everybody. Like, you have to be really good. You have to be cruising to have a 30-12 box score feel bland, mid, or meh. And I guess if it was any other team, like the Raiders came in, I'd be like, yeah, you probably should have beaten them. And they would have. Jefferson didn't drop the damn touchdown. But you're in a really good spot emotionally, and for your sports fandom, if your favorite team is beating other team 30-12, and you're just kind of like, yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, while you brought up the touchdown twice now, I don't want to forget to say. So our friend Josh, Minnesota, we were watching. He was out there with us watching the game. When he dropped that ball with Jefferson, he said, "Oh my God, this is the equivalent of seeing a comet. This is something people will never see. People will never see this again. They'll be writing about this in the history book. This is like seeing a comet." I was just, I think you could be right. That's about as rare as this is. And I think Jefferson obviously hated that and made sure not to make that mistake again. I don't think we'll see that from him. But I want to bring this up because I saw somebody in the chat talking about the offensive line, and I want to see what you think about that. I'm missing where it is, but with O'Neal going in and out. Oh, Emmer 33. O'Neal coming in and out probably threw a wrench in whatever the game plan was that they had. Do you have more information on what was going on there? Because I missed it. I just saw that he was going out, that Cam Robinson was having a lot of issues with penalties, and we have not seen. They started out the season having a ton of pre-snap penalties that they were the worst in the league, and then it has chilled out. I think last night was the most penalties they've had since the Jets game in London. So what is the offensive line update? What's going on with them?
So the penalties did show back up, but they never, at least this year, the other team also is accompanied by them. We have like this plus 27 split on turnovers against the other team. So I can't bellyache about turnovers on the whole because they've been very favorable to us. Brian O'Neal, first, that was really, really suspenseful there when he was on the turf and you didn't know if he's going to get right back up, because it's like the Lions. You can only get so far if you keep losing all these guys. And if O'Neal would have been gone, and then the rest of the way is Cam Robinson and David Quesenberry, we're probably fooling ourselves. But no, he eventually came back into the game, then went back out and got back in. And then right now he's just dealing with soreness, nothing structural. And then the interior offensive line, we never expect it to be elite, and it probably won't until Kwesi Adofo-Mensah makes a couple more changes. I'm sure that's on the long-term bingo board. The offensive line on the whole ranks about 13th, 14th in pass protection, whether you use PFF or ESPN's grades. So I don't have a giant concern, but I'm a little jaded because, Sally, we used to do a show in 2020 and 2021 where we would beg to be somewhere near average in pass protection. And that's happened. So I don't bitch very loud when it's not, top five. If it's good for me and you have somebody who's mobile like Sam, I don't have a lot of grievances. Now, if O'Neal would have got hurt, I would be on your very show tonight saying, guys and gals, you're without Darrisaw, you're without O'Neal. You're not going to keep getting away with it. But we don't have to talk about that because O'Neal is going to be just fine.
I agree. It's like such a relief just to see consistency at each position, and we don't expect them to be the best. They're good enough for what Sam's got, his skill set. So it's all good. But JB brought up the interception that Sam threw. That personally,
I'm totally fine with that.
Oh, didn't bother me whatsoever. I mean, like,
it would have been worse if he took the sack.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Okay. We're in agreement there. I saw a couple people on Twitter very upset about what a shitty throw it was, and it's like, well, I mean, and they got so excited.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do on fourth down. You throw it up and you hope one of those guys comes down with it. In fact, it's a shitty decision if you don't do that.
Well, and then did you guys see at the game that they were doing the SKOL chant that the Bears were?
Yeah, that was pointed out to us. Yeah, Yannick Eckhart was with me. He was on top of finding that had happened yet again.
Okay, I was wondering if they put that on the jumbotron, but it seems
No,
like okay, they should have. That would have really gotten the fans fired up there in the middle when they were losing steam. But okay, all right. We've got the offensive line. Hopefully, those penalties won't continue to be a thing because that really surprised me because we hadn't seen that in a while.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Will Reichard back. He did miss one kick. Are we concerned? He didn't miss a kick?
Didn't. No, he was
what the
3
fuck am
for 3.
I talking about? Oh my
God, he
missed
one last week.
Okay,
yeah, he was perfect. He hit from
sorry.
29, 46, and 52, and then hit his extra points. Last week, he missed a 40-something yarder, but that's okay. Kickers are supposed to miss about 2 or 3, per year, and Will's got those out of the way, and so we don't have to worry about them during the playoff push. But yeah, that Will Reichard, for us feels like a godsend. And that's another thing that's so weird is when he steps up to the plate, I don't sit there and grab my wife's elbow and hope for the best. You just expect it to be okay.
Okay, I'm sorry for that slander. You know what I was mixing it up with? How they went for it on fourth down when they were in field goal territory, and they definitely would have gotten it.
Okay. Yeah.
Blew it. I'm sorry for that slander to Will. That was totally not fair of you, and I spaced on that. That's what happens when you're in the parking lot. Sometimes things get a little fuzzy. But yes, I was talking about when they tried to put the game away there and go for it. Go for it. But all right, let's get on to it because the Bears are over. You already mentioned you're not worried about Seattle at all. I also am not. I don't think it's official if they're playing Geno yet or Sam Howell, but does it matter?
When you watch the game, well, yeah, it does because Sam Howell sucks and Geno's mid, and there's a big difference between being mid and shitty. So when you watch the game, it felt like Geno probably would be out for a while, but then he's already trying to ramp up and be ready. So I'm going to guess he'll play. There's also Jaron Hall deep on that roster for anybody that cares. Yep. The reason that this game is important to me is because the Vikings have not won at that godforsaken place since 2006. They have lost 5 straight games in Seattle. They started losing that in 2012. They lost in 2012, 2013, 2018, 2019, and 2020. So basically, Harrison Smith's entire career, he's gone to Seattle, and Russell Wilson's team has beaten him. So for the sake of Harrison Smith and for the sake of being a better football team right now than the Seahawks, I think they should go there and beat them. Now, I predicted 3 weeks ago on my show with Josh Fry that this would probably be a game that they would lose. But I've changed my tune on this team because they showed me against the Falcons they could step on the gas and put a team away when they needed to. Mm-hmm. When they almost coughed the damn thing up against the Bears, Darnold showed me that he had the clutch gene. And I'll reiterate it for folks that are getting excited. We haven't had any moment where we looked at each other and said, "Oh my God, Sam Darnold he's not going to be big enough at this moment." Every time he responds with what we've asked, and that is what usually the 3rd overall pick type of DNA, and he's showing that he has it. So I am weirdly optimistic about the Vikings in Seattle. It's probably a long shot to think that they will win out and get home field advantage because they still got to beat the Packers, and then you might have the Lions for all the marbles. But Sally, I've told you a few times, we were destined to find a good kicker soon because it just has to even out at some point. I'm starting to think that with this 30-something-year drought in Minnesota sports, whether it's the Timberwolves, the Twins, or the Wild, or the Vikings, we're going to go on this little, just flurry of winning championships. So why not these Vikings or why not those Wild? It's going to happen soon, and I'm trying to make myself dream big about a 12-2 football team.
Wow. Okay, well, that's a lot to take in. Too evil. I see he said that he was going to stop by the gold lot yesterday, but he didn't know how long we would stay. I was there till at least midnight, I believe. So I guess it depends what time you were going to be looking. But yes, we were always there, usually late. And this was the best, actually, post-game celebration that we have had all season, which is Hard to believe given that it was a Monday night. Usually people want to get home on Monday night. But yeah, I'm with you. I, of course, don't love that they're playing there, but I don't know.
Hmm.
That game that they had against the Packers last week, it was hideous. They
Yeah.
were not in ever even for 1 second. And so
Well,
maybe I'm a little biased because that's so fresh in my
all
memory.
all year they've been deconstructing and shattering. I don't know if you call them narratives or stats. Like we hadn't beat a team by 17 points or more since December of 2019, that Chargers game at StubHub Field. Now we've beaten 4 teams by that much. We hadn't scored 40 points in a game in 5 years. Boom, against Kirk Cousins' team, the perfect team to do it against. We did it. And so it's kind of what I said at the top of the show. It feels like all of these paranoias we'd usually have are falling by the wayside. And this
Mhm.
Seattle one is just another example. This team feels like it's competent enough that it's not going to give a shit about the last 5 games in Seattle. Maybe Harrison Smith does on a personal note, but it feels like a team that has exercised some of the demons that we're used to, whether it's the kicker, whether it's you can't blow anybody out. There's a lot of good things happening. And it's taken a long time for me to warm up and be like, hey, this is just a 7-10 team that's slightly overachieving. They're really good. They're really balanced. And I'm trying to find ways to, this could go all the way, that type of feeling.
It's hard to argue with that because we haven't seen those things that you've just mentioned from
Mm-hmm.
this team at all. So it feels like, well, why not? There's
Yeah.
nothing to criticize that you're like, okay, that's going to shoot them in the foot. That's going
Mm-hmm.
to happen. Oh, Brett Favre, yep, he's a gunslinger. He can step up and win a game for them, but he can also lose a game for them. We don't have any of those things to point to. So it's hard to imagine that really happening in those fashions. But I'm looking ahead at the playoff picture. Of course, I want them to win out because I would love for us to have home games to go to and to be able to have the home field advantage of US Bank Stadium for the Vikings. But looking ahead at the potential places where they may go to play, I can't really point to anywhere or any team that I fear them playing. I think we talked
Mm-hmm.
about this on your show. Do you agree with that?
I'm sure when we get to that week, I will be in my usual bag of bullshit where I start to envision, like, all right, this is the shit that's going to happen when we get to the playoffs. Mainly because the Giants just happened, 2 years ago. Tampa Bay is a very good team. We saw that against the Bucks. They're capable of beating your ass at any time. The Falcons are kind of a joke now, whether it's Cousins or Penix. Neither one's going to scare me. The Rams are one of those cliche teams that they can beat anybody. Like they showed they could do that to the Bills. But I would like the matchup of O'Connell going up against, former teacher again in that building to get a little face mask revenge. And then the
Yeah.
only other one that would be realistic would be Seattle beating us and that catapulting them to win the division. And then we go right back to those bastards' house here in about 3 weeks or whatever it is. So no, there's not now that the 49ers, now that they're basically out, that was like the one place that I was like, no matter what, we're going to go there and we're going to lose. All these other teams are gettable. And that's the cool part about the NFC right now. It's mainly because the Lions are a division rival, so anything goes when we play them. But there's not a team in the NFL right now that when I envision the Vikings playing them, where I'm like, oh, you could put a fork in that one. And there's almost always about 2 teams in any given year where I'll think to myself, hey, if we had to go to Arrowhead, we're going to get our asses spanked. Or some of those Russell Wilson teams. Ain't no way we're winning in Seattle. And I just don't feel that way about this team. There's not a single team. If the Vikings went to Buffalo, I don't think that they would lose 38-3. I think they would play quite well and maybe even win the thing. So there's a lot of positivity here. And it's not based on homerism that I'm getting invested. It's because each and every week they show me their resilience and they show me how balanced they are.
Ditto. Okay, we have a new viewer, Taylin Remmer. So I want to say hi to you. And Dolly obviously knew that you were here because she made herself aware and needed to get on camera to meet you as well. So welcome. We're happy that you're here. But there is no one who, not a team, as you were saying, that scares me, that I think they're going to lay an egg with, that they can't compete with. There are locations where I would prefer they not play. Obviously Philadelphia, while that's unlikely that that's going to be a matchup, I absolutely want no part in them playing in Philadelphia for all of the reasons that we're very aware of. And yeah, but I'm with you. I mean, Tampa Bay is getting hot. Baker just had a great game. I think road trip wise, that would be my preference if I had to pick. But and then the Rams also, I think, are scary as well. But I don't look at any team, and then I don't want them to play in Lambeau just because fuck the whole Lambeau story thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's likely either. But there isn't a team where I'm just like, oh my god, nope, they can't hang with them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's pretty cool. I will say those Super Bowl in New Orleans, really, I don't have a good feeling about that.
Well, hey, I'm willing to take the chance and see if it goes well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say like decline the invitation because it's in New Orleans or anything like that. But I just, first of all, I don't understand why that stadium is so old and it's still hosting Super Bowls. Like, what's the deal there? Don't we have other locations? But we know the history there. I don't really want them there. And then just the fact that like people have died. People literally died there. We don't need to be playing Super Bowls there. But again, I'll deal with it. I'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But all right, let's see how much time do we have. Okay, we have like a few more minutes. Something else I thought was interesting. I didn't realize until today that Brian Flores interviewed with the Bears back in 2022. And they didn't hire him.
Really?
You're looking at me questionably. I heard that on Dan Barrero today.
Oh, okay. I just don't remember that.
I don't know if it was an official interview, but I know they talked to him. So there's a guy who is a beat writer in Chicago. And he, after the game last night, was like, well, screw this. I don't really even want to go into my own team's locker room because it's boring. I've seen this all before. So I'm going to go into Minnesota's locker room. And so what he decided to do was go around and interview a bunch of defensive players and ask them questions about Brian Flores. So it's actually a pretty cool article. I can send it to you. But they're all just they're raving about how much they love playing for him. And so apparently they are saying that B-Flow talked to them in 2022, and then they ended up going with Eberflus, obviously, and we see how that happened. Why do you think Ryan Poles is always getting this free pass of being this mastermind GM? It's kind of maybe turning recently, but I just don't understand that narrative. And it feels like everyone holds him to this standard that I don't feel like he deserves.
Okay, so the reason that he's only starting to pay the piper in the court of public opinion is the way that he constructed things. If you can subtract the knowledge of Eberflus as the head coach, he really built a pretty impressive team, at least to the naked eye, because you had all the playmakers. We were told all summer by Bears fans that nobody's ever had playmakers like this for a rookie quarterback. Yeah. And now we're being told that these guys aren't any good. It's weird how that works. But he went and got a cast for his young quarterback that should do the trick. DeAndre Swift is a decent running back, and then Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Rome Odunze is going to be good, whether it's with this team or another team. So the offensive weapons were there. Check. The defense is pretty good. We saw that in 2 games this year. The rushing defense can stand to get a little better, but Chicago's calling card is defense. So you didn't have the patience to get through your rookie quarterback's first campaign because you realize that the head coach sucks and he's doing really weird shit on Thanksgiving Day. So Poles' biggest problem was his head coaching hire. And I think that's why he's starting to be held accountable now, is because he waited for, I don't know, probably an offseason too long before realizing he had made a mistake. But I will say this, Sally, I was telling this to Yannick yesterday when we were leaving the building. I think that Caleb Williams will probably eventually be good and a lot better than he's playing right now. But we are watching in real time what happens to Bears quarterbacks. We always wonder, like, they're worse than us, than the Vikings in developing a quarterback. Why can they never figure it out? They're showing you in living color right now how they always mess this up. They went and got the one guy, the generational guy at the first overall pick, and his big claim to fame is he can make every play this chaotic, just absolute, like, unbelievable play because he runs around all over the place. Well, fine. Let's see if that translates. But then you got him with this coach that most of the world was like, hey, that coach isn't good, but you're going to keep him anyway. Now you're going to stunt Caleb's development in his first year. He's going through a 8 or 9 game losing streak right now. The coach is long gone. You're going to go try to hire somebody that Caleb's going to like. Maybe it's an offensive guy. Maybe it's Brian Flores. So I just want to point out, in the annals of NFL history, or specifically the Bears, this is how the Bears always screw it up, is they're doing what they're doing right now. They hired the wrong head coach to nurture the quarterback. They went and drafted the quarterback who's a little on the moody side, and, he has the bad body image on camera. It's happening right now with the Bears, with a guy that shouldn't be that, he shouldn't be somebody you can mess up this easily in Caleb Williams.
No, I'm willing to have just seen them do it with Justin Fields, and then before that with Mitch Trubisky. And it's like, you guys can make fun of us for our quarterback woes all you want to, but to mess up 3 high draft picks 3 in a row that close together, it's almost seems impossible to be able to even do. And I hope for Caleb's sake that they do get somebody in there who can make him successful, because if anything, this Sam Darnold experience has really, I think, brought to a lot of people's attention that it's not necessarily that these guys suck. It's that they're put into situations and conditions where they can't be successful. They're not working with an organization that gives them the tools to succeed, or that are able to communicate or get the skills out of them to take them to the NFL level. And Sam Darnold is just such a great poster child for that now, because like you were saying earlier in the show, I think we've all reached the point where we aren't worried that this is just lightning in the bottle for Sam Darnold and it's going to burn out and we're going to go back to seeing the real Sam Darnold. This is the real Sam Darnold. And so I don't want it. I don't want us to keep seeing more and more and more quarterbacks go through this. Of course we are, but even if it's a Bears quarterback, I don't want to see it happen to anyone. It just sucks. And it just makes it less interesting. I feel so bad for those guys. Like Baker, so happy for Baker. But okay, let's say hey to the chat and then we can wrap this up. I see we had a Bears fan in here who must be coming for some therapy because he said he hates his life. Oh, Fig Nuts. Fig Nuts said he hates his life because he's a Bears fan, and Flores is not going to want to take the dumb job. And again, we don't know if Flores is going to be looking for head coaching opportunities or if he'd even consider that one. But I think that one would be very low on his list if he were considering taking it. I don't know why Chicago wouldn't just want to get an offensive-minded coach to make sure their guy is successful, that they just spend a ton of resources on.
I should hire Josh McCown.
I just love seeing Josh McCown and Sam Darnold interact on the sidelines. It makes me so happy to see those two together.
Well, McCown quarterbacked the Bears, and I'm guessing he could do pretty well with Caleb. That's who I think they should hire, even if it goes against the Vikings' best interest.
Yeah, I think that would be good. What's Jay Cutler up to? Was he available?
I don't think he'd be a good head coach.
I don't think he would be at all. He actually just got a DUI recently, so I wasn't trying to be funny. But
our offensive coordinator got one of those. We're fine.
But his body language, like the criticisms that Caleb gets for not caring or not being a good teammate or a good leader, and the body posture and stuff, that was everything that people said about Jay Cutler. So it does remind me of
that was like the one knock on Cutler was he just was kind of a sourpuss.
Yeah, he was. The smoking Jay Cutler bit that will never get old. But all right, well, do we have anything else we need to touch on?
I want to get this. I'm going to run through these things real quick. I thought of it during the show. So about 2-3 years ago, I tried to start pondering how these teams like the Chiefs, Patriots, Rams, how they win Super Bowls. And I came to the conclusion that there's a 5-part formula, and I want to call out the Vikings have most of these covered, at least in some way. So the 5 ways to win a Super Bowl as of like the last decade are usually getting running backs that are efficient, but not necessarily household names. Like the Patriots would just sign LeGarrette Blount and call it good. So usually it's a running back by committee, but you still have to be able to run the ball a little bit. And the Vikings are doing that with Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is going to have like 1,500 yards from scrimmage. The other part of the blueprint, number 2, is a productive tight end. The Chiefs and Patriots could tell you all about this, that having a productive tight end makes the offense tick a lot more, especially on Sundays when Justin Jefferson is being contained or Jordan Addison isn't quite popping off. So you have the running back efficiency, production from the tight end, offensive line. Usually that is important in a playoff push. And we think that ours is passable, certainly not elite, but the pass protection has to be above average. And I think the Vikings is that. And the last 2 are a clutch quarterback in the postseason. That's mandatory. We think that Darnold probably has that going for him. When we get to the playoffs, I'm not going to go, oh my God, can Darnold lead us back in the fourth quarter? I know that he can. He's already shown me that he can do that. I don't think the playoffs are going to be too big for him. So at least somewhat checked off the list is the possibility of Darnold's ability to be clutch in the postseason. And then the most important one is either a really hot defense or a really good defense, because all of the Patriots, all of the Chiefs, let's see, the Rams won it in 2021. You got to either have a good defense from cover to cover, or it gets hot in the postseason. So those things, a productive tight end, efficient running back, even though it doesn't have to be some huge like household name like Christian McCaffrey, offensive line, good pass protection, a clutch quarterback, and a good or hot defense. I'm trying to tell you, the Vikings have these items checked off the list. So it's not going to be that stunning if they continue these winning ways. And when we get to the middle of January, we start to get really super excited about the possibilities.
Well, I think we're already really super excited about the possibilities. I mean, look at us. We're 12-2. We're 12-2 after 6 and 11 predictions, I believe, from both of us. So we are completely.
I said 7-10. Thank you very much.
You did say 7-10. You did, and yet officially at the end, I did turn mine to 7-10. But it was 6 and 11 the whole way through. And here we are at 12-2. Mm-hmm. They're convincing wins. They've all been fun wins. Well, Jacksonville and those weren't necessarily fun, but they've all no flukes and completely different culture in TCO and at US Bank Stadium than we had even seen last year. And it's just a beautiful thing. So, all right, chat. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Make sure you check out Dustin's YouTube channel, Vikes Now. And also he writes for Vikings Territory. And he's also just an overall good human. And yeah, what else do we got? That's it. We'll be back at US Bank in 2 weeks. Go ahead.
Yeah, I said, no, I think that's all we got. I think the Vikings will find a way to win about 30-24 against the Seahawks.
Ooh, 30-24, huh? I know now they're just up scoring 30 points all the time.
Yeah.
Just no problem. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not ready for the prediction yet, but yeah, they'll get 30.
Okay. You got time.
They'll get 30 points. No, of course, no question about that. But all right, Dustin, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you guys for hanging out. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will be back on Thursday to hang out with you guys then.
Skol, baby.
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And rate us on your favorite aggregator. And a big shout out goes to Sal and her guests on this Vikings First and SKOL production, partnered with the Fans First Sports Network. Thanks, everyone, and SKOL.